Okay, we're going to take another look at the game Lee Moves North, only this time I'm going to do a replay of the Gettysburg Campaign. Now, I was not quite satisfied with my original video on Lee Moves North, so I may pull it. So this will be the replacement video, I think, of that game. So I'll start the playthrough and we'll just see how it goes. Okay, as a quick recap of the scale, this game begins on June 9th, 10th. So each turn, is a day or two. And as you can see, the Battle of Gettysburg, which we know is July 1st, 2nd, 3rd here, is about turn 12. So if we're simulating the Gettysburg campaign, there'll be a lot of maneuver beforehand. Now, the game is designed in 1973, so we're talking about a very old game, and designed by SPI. In those days, the maps were very, what I'll call minimalistic. Not a lot of features, but the counters and stuff were the standard blue and gray and were perfectly functional. Now, the real selling point about this game is the hidden movement aspect. It's a game really about reconnaissance and movement, not as much battle. Now, each Confederate unit represents a division or a brigade of cavalry, and there's dummy units in there. Each Union unit represents a corps. And I'm going to play this solitaire game as if I'm the Confederate player and I don't know what the Union troops are. So keep that in mind. This isn't the best solitaire game because the hidden movement aspects of the game are critical to making this game work. Now, I'll swing the camera around so we're looking north to south. So here's Gordonsville, Virginia. There's Fredericksburg, Acquia Creek, and Brandy Station. The game begins with Lee's army around Fredericksburg and Brandy Station, and the Union Army, technically under Hooker, not Meade, here north of the Potomac, and the Confederates will move first. Now, anyone who's studied the campaign knows that Lee wants to take the war out of Virginia and move it into Maryland and Pennsylvania. And his ultimate objective is to perhaps knock out the rail communications here at Harrisburg. That's where the points will accrue. Now, in my first video I mentioned I didn't really care for the combat results table, and I still don't. But I'm going to play this as just a pure game, and we'll just see what happens when combat does occur. So we'll begin the game with the Confederates moving first. Okay, this is after the Confederates have moved. This is Ewell's Corps, marching as rapidly as it can to Front Royal to get into the valley. This is, that's Longstreet and Ewell, I should point out. Hill's Corps, the one that was left at Fredericksburg, and a lot of the cavalry is here upside down. I'm keeping them upside down because then they act as dummy units, which means the Union doesn't really know who is there, and they'd have to spend time and resources to reconnoiter. So we've got Lee moving as fast as he can towards the valley. What would the Union do in this situation? Well, we're going to move the Union next, but I'm trying to play it as if Meade and Hooker would be under Lincoln's instructions, so they certainly wouldn't be crashing across the Rappahannock to hit the rear of Lee's column. They'd probably move to the west and try to always keep between Lee and Washington. So that's what we'll do, and maybe we can get some reconnaissance in there too. But we'll catch the video after the Union have moved. Okay, this is the Union move. They're generally moving to the west to follow the Confederates. And of course, I'm keeping them not stacked because when you play the game, you have to pay a penalty for stacking and unstacking. So right now we're in march mode and trying to save movement points by not stacking. Now we have a reconnaissance situation here because we've got a face-up Union cavalry. I figured what the heck, you might as well do some free reconnaissance. So we'll do a reconnaissance there, roll the die, and see if we expose that Confederate unit. We roll a 1, which is successful. So the Union would find out that that is actually Anderson's division. So they know for sure that there's real troops there. Here they have no idea what they are. Could be dummies. Those could be dummies. So we'll go on to the next turn. So we finished the June 9th and 10th move. So it'll now be June 11th and 12th. And we'll follow the action after the Confederates have moved. Okay, this is after the Confederates have moved. We've got Ewell sweeping up the Shenandoah Valley, trying to close in on the 8th Corps here at Harper's. In retrospect, I'm wondering if I shouldn't have retreated the 8th Corps right away, but in the Union turn, he'll try to get out of there. Longstreet's following up, moving up, and Hill, unfortunately, is now very, very spread out. Of course, a lot of these are dummies, which the Union wouldn't know, but he's getting a little spread out, which I'm not too comfortable with. The Union is pretty well concentrated here and moving, not too bad, but they move next, and let's see what they can do. I think they will want to get the 8th Corps out, though, if they can, and that, of course, is by a die roll, because that unit is out of command control. Let's follow the action after the Union has moved. Okay, this is after the Union have moved. The 8th Corps did get out of Harper's Ferry, which is good for the Union, because in real life, that corps got kind of chewed up by Lee's army advancing because they didn't pull out early enough, which was a strategic mistake. Meade's got his army well in hand here. They're pretty well concentrated. I've got a couple of guys out of command, though, because the leaders have to also roll for forced march. So these guys are going to have to roll for movement when they move. But Meade's army is doing its job. It's in between Lee and Washington. Lee isn't making any great points right now, and there's no casualties. So we'll go on to the third turn, which is the June 13th, June 14th, and pick up the action after the Confederates have moved. Okay, this is after the Confederates have moved. Now, 2 divisions are north of the Potomac. Now, when Confederates move north of the Potomac, they must roll a die. If they roll a 1, they lose a step and they have to reveal themselves. So they successfully crossed and are okay. So we have Ewell's Corps concentrated around Harper's Ferry, but north of the Potomac. The supply depot is just south of Harper's Ferry. Longstreet's Corps is concentrated here just in case the Union decides to counterattack. Hill is still spread out, and anyone with experience would know that these are dummies because they're moving by die roll and they're far away from the friendly commanders. But in the game, dummies, even if you know they're dummies, still exert zones of control, so they're still doing something. So the Union will be moving now. Oh, I should point out that the Confederate cavalry revealed 2 corps here, or actually 1 corps, the 5th Corps, a real unit. Now, when the Union moves, they'll be able to reflip that unit and mix them in with there. Now we have the Union decision of whether to concentrate the army and hit Lee from the rear or echo his movements to the north. I'll look at the situation and make a decision. Okay, this is after the Union have moved. There wasn't enough corps to concentrate to hit the rear of the Confederate column here, so instead Meade moved generally to the west and north and is still fairly well concentrated. The 8th Corps pulled back to guard this pass, and we have another corps guarding this pass here. So we've still got the Union Army between Lee and Washington. Go to the next turn, and we'll see what Lee can do. Now, Hill tried a forced march in his turn and got a disruption result, which means in this turn, the Confederate turn, Hill will not be able to move. Let's catch the action after the Confederates have moved. Okay, this is after the Confederates have moved. Ewell is up here in Maryland, crossing the river. The depot is near Sharpsburg. Longstreet decided to concentrate at Harper's Ferry, and remember that the leader Hill had to hang back. So his corps and these dummies are coming up here to stack and try to intercede with the Union. As you can see, the Confederate cavalry is doing their job this time. We're not trying to simulate Jeb Stuart's raid behind the Union army. And so Lee's army is well screened. It remains to be seen whether the Union wants to attack perhaps this column here or attack Harper's Ferry. Let's look at Union options. Okay, this is the situation after the Union have moved, and they were able to concentrate 4 corps under Meade here And with 4 corps, they're going to certainly take the chance of attacking this space, which I even forget what's in there. All right, so we got Hill's Corps, so this should be interesting. 4 corps of the Army of the Potomac under good leadership, attacking 3 independent divisions of Hill's Corps. So this could be a deal breaker here, I don't know. I'll calculate the odds, roll the dice, and see what the result is. Okay, when you add up all the leadership factors, that works out to a 3-to-1 battle. We'll roll the die. Like I said, sometimes this table can have some wonky results. Anyway, we'll roll the die, see what we get. Okay, we get a 3, which isn't one of those wonky results. It's each lose 1 step, which in the end means the Confederates are going to do a little bit better casualty-wise. But of course, casualties are not good for the Confederate Army. So we can replace the Anderson Division with a 6. So in effect, they'll lose 1 step. But when the Union loses corps, they lose the equivalent of 3 steps. So we'll do that first and see what happens with the retreats. Okay, I misspoke the casualties there. Anderson's division actually is reduced to a 5, so they lost 2 steps. And the 6th Corps, which was a 16, went down to a 12. So they lost 4 steps. So that's the end of the battle. There is no retreat, and the armies are left in the original positions. We'll move the turn record and go on to the Confederate turn. I should point out that in that battle, you can see the importance of leadership. Because there was no Confederate leadership there at all, that's how the Union was able to get the 3-to-1 on the Confederates. So leaders are very important in this game for adding combat factors. Let's move the turn record and move the Confederates. Okay, the Confederates have just moved. That's Ewell's Corps spread out all across Pennsylvania. 1 division force marched ahead, but got an unlucky die roll and is disrupted. The supply train is here. Lee and Longstreet are across the Potomac near Harper's Ferry. Hill is still very slow and kind of lagging behind here in the valley with a lot of dummy units in front. What will the Union do? Let's see. Okay, this is after the Union Army has moved. They've scattered here and left Hill and moved up to the Potomac because they have to react to the Confederates north of the Potomac now, because Ewell is running amok in Pennsylvania. Now, the Confederates get points if they knock out these 2 rail lines to the west. They get 10 points every turn that they control that rail line. So now Meade certainly has to start scooting north. They can't afford to lose 10 points per turn. So it's kind of a race now. Lee will try to get north as quickly as he can, and Meade will try to follow him and protect those railroads. What else happened? Oh yes, when the Confederates crossed the Potomac, I forgot to put the militia units on, these 1-5s that appear at Carlisle, Harrisburg, Columbia, and Gettysburg. They're small, but they're nuisance units, and they could slow the Confederates down. So let's advance the turn record to June 15th now and catch the action. Okay, the Confederates have moved. Ewell's Corps is up near Carlisle here, near this militia unit. Longstreet is in the Hagerstown vicinity, and Hill is still at Harper's Ferry, and the cavalry is screening the Union Army. Most of these guys back here are dummies, although a new real unit came on the board here. It's a replacement, and it's just moving up from Port Republic. So the Confederates, their invasion is well in hand. We'll see what the Union can do, because they've got to get moving to open up those rail lines. Okay, this is after the Union have moved. They've put some militia throwing in front of Ewell. They're trying to buy as much time as possible. These militia units are moving by die roll, so they're trying to get down that track as fast as possible. And the unit from Gettysburg only moved 1 hex. The Union cavalry has blocked these passes here, and the Union Army is trying to march north as fast as they can, but they are certainly behind Lee. And it's going to be a race. I think Lee might get those rail lines cut before the Union can react. Over here it's pretty well a stalemate, just dummies blocking dummies, nothing happening there. Washington, Baltimore, of course, are completely secure. Lee is nowhere near them. So the armies are not concentrated enough for the big battle. It'll be just a big race right now. Might have to have the Union force march, I'm not sure. One thing I did do was entrain one corps here under Sickles. So it entrained, which means it'll be able to get up to Harrisburg, I suppose. We'll see how that goes as we go to the next turn with the Confederates moving again. Okay, the Confederates have moved. Ewell scatters. He wants to get around this militia. He doesn't want to bother fighting with it because you're always worried about that exchange result. So Ewell's up near Harrisburg. He hasn't cut the rail lines yet because he's still south of the Susquehanna. An independent division over here. Lee and Longstreet coming up at this depot. And Hill has finally crossed the Potomac. No losses from desertion. The Confederate cavalry is still screening the mountain passes. And one cavalry here, Confederate, found out a Union dummy. So that's the situation for the Confederates. The Union will now move. They'll be able to replace this dummy counter, also move the Sickles Corps by rail. Let's see what the Union can do, because they've got to get moving here. Okay, the Union have moved. The militia has gone here along the Susquehanna to try and throw zones of control all around Ewell. Sickles Corps is still on trains just at east of York, and the Union Army is moving as north as fast as it can. Cavalry screening and trying to catch Lee. In the south, not much happening. Of course, that's a dummy counter, and these are all dummies, so nothing happening there. That's the situation. On to the next turn. Okay, this is after the Confederates have moved. Ewell has now cut the rail lines to the west, so the Confederates are going to get 10 points for that. Lee, Longstreet, they've captured Carlisle, so they have a supply base. Confederate cavalry is moving a little bit to the west, and Hill is starting his march north from Sharpsburg. One cavalry brigade remaining behind. So this turn, the Confederates are going to get 10 points per turn unless the Union pushes them off that track. So I think the Confederates have got the jump on the Union this time, and Meade's going to have to move awfully rapidly fast west to for the big battle to get Ewell and the boys off of that track. Let's see where it goes. Okay, this is after the Union have moved. They've put their dummies around Ewell here to try to impede his movements, but the Confederates are still going to get the 10 points because they're still cutting the rail lines. Meade is moving north and west by normal marches. Nobody's force marched yet, and he's trying to concentrate against Lee. So, could be interesting. We could be simulating something like the Gettysburg Campaign. It's hard to tell. Lee is still pretty stretched out here, all the way from near Hagerstown all the way to up here past Carlisle. So let's see what the Confederates can do in their next turn. Okay, this is after the Confederates have moved. Now, because the Union are moving west, Lee and Longstreet decide to concentrate in the Chambersburg area. They recalled one division of Ewell back, and Ewell, trying to maintain that stranglehold on the railroads, is remaining there with 2 divisions. So we'll see where that goes. Lee is being a bit bold here, or maybe playing it safe, you might say. Meade could move to the west and start to concentrate against Lee. We'll see what happens when the Union moves and see what the Confederate reaction will be to it on the next turn. Okay, this is the situation after the Union have moved. It's the June 19th, 20th turn, by the way. And the troops are concentrated very close to Gettysburg. They're just west of the town. So Reynolds, Sedgwick, Meade's got a good concentration here, with only Sickles driving on Ewell to try to drive him away from the tracks. Most of Lee's army is there, so this turn, the Confederates have to make a decision whether to concentrate and fight or attack Reynolds. We might see some action this turn. Let's see what the Confederates do for the next turn. Okay, here's the situation after Lee has moved. So we're going to have a big battle. Lee's leaving 2 divisions of Ewell still across the railroad tracks, so they're going to get 10 points again because they're holding the cutting off the Union rail lines. So Lee, with the entire Army of Northern Virginia, minus those 2 divisions, is attacking Reynolds here, who has with him 3 corps. So it's going to be almost like the first day of Gettysburg, actually. And coincidentally, we're fighting just 2 hexes from the Gettysburg Square. So map-wise, I guess we'd probably be fighting maybe about where Cashtown is. So we're west of where the town of Gettysburg is and east of Chambersburg. So let's see what happens when 2/3 of Lee's army attacks 3 Union corps. Again, you've got this very wonky combat results table, so who knows what'll happen. Let's do the odds and figure it out. Okay, in the final analysis, this battle is 71 factors to 31, I think it is. 12 to 21, 30, 35. So it's a massive 2-to-1 battle. And let's roll the dice and see what happens. Whoa, the Confederates got a really bad roll. 2-to-1 and they rolled a 6. Actually, it's not that bad. It's the 1 counterattack result. Now, I'm going to have to look this one up. This is where the game gets a little wonky. So let me look that up and see what that means. Okay, well, the 1 CA result means that the entire Union Army counterattacks the Confederate Army and has to add 1 to the dice. Just want to make sure of that, though. No, it's kind of, like I thought, kind of wonky. It means the Union Army can counterattack any 1 unit of the Confederate Army, although it does have to add 1 to the die. This is where I find the combat results table just a little kind of wonky. So this would mean 35. Of course, they would pick a low division. We'll hit on Pickett's division. So the Union would counterattack at 7-to-1. Highest table is 6-to-1. And has to add 1 to the dice. Roll the die. They get a 5, which becomes a 6, which in the end is each side loses 1 step. So in this case, the wonky result turned out to be just an exchange, but we'll see how it goes. We'll take the losses and continue on. Okay, this is after casualties have been taken. Pickett's division became a 4, and the 2nd Corps became a 9. Now, in retrospect, I see it might have been better to attack maybe Rhodes, Hood, or McLaws, because when they're reduced, their 7s become 5s. So, anyway, I learned something about the game, too. So, that's the end of the Confederate attack. The Union will now move. Well, in this situation, I'm not sure what the Union should do. Most of the Army of the Potomac is concentrated just east of where Lee is. They only have 1 corps missing, Sickles, while Lee has at least 2 divisions. So, I don't know, a bold commander would probably counterattack, and I think that's what I'll have Meade do. He'll concentrate everything he's got in this hex and counterattack Lee just east of Gettysburg, and let's see what happens. Okay, well, the Union response was simple. Meade concentrated his entire army, minus Sickles' corps, against Lee's army, minus 2 divisions. Sickles didn't have enough movement points to close in on Ewell, but he probably will be able to attack next turn. So this is the equivalent, I guess, of the big battle at Gettysburg. Nearly all of the units are engaged. You might say equivalent to the 2nd day at Gettysburg, because we already had that battle last turn. So this battle, I'll do the math, work out the odds, and see what happens. Okay, after doing the math, it comes out to one big massive 1-to-1, something like 91 to about 50 something. Anyway, on this table, there's lots of wonky results here, lots of counterattacks. So let's roll on the 1-to-1 table, Union against Confederate, see what happens. Union rolls a 3. Which is 1 and counterattack, which means the entire Army of Northern Virginia can pick 1 Union Corps and counterattack. Let me do the math here and we'll work it out. Well, as it turns out, the entire Army of Northern Virginia can counterattack Union Corps, and they'll pick the 5th Corps. It works out to a 5-to-1. So we'll roll on the dice there and see what happens. Lee rolls a 6, which is a crap result, and that's just a DR. Now a DR means defender disrupted. Same procedure as an AR, only the result is applied to all the defending units. Now when you get a DR, you retreat number of hexes equal to 1/2 their movement allowance, drop fractions. So the Union Army will be retreating 2 hexes and is demoralized. So Lee has driven the Union Army away and kind of won this little simulated Battle of Gettysburg. Okay, that's the situation after the Confederate, no, pardon me, that was the Union move. So the Confederates will move next, advance the turn record, and the D result does not come off for the Union until the end of their turn. Now, disruption results can be very bad. Bad in the sense that if you are attacked again and dispersed again, I think every man must lose a step. Let me just check that up. Well, it's not as bad as I thought, but it's still not great. If they get another AR result or DR result, if they were the defender, they would lose another step. So if you hit an army while it's demoralized or disrupted, you have a chance of inflicting more casualties. So I'll move the advance turn record and weigh Lee's options. Okay, well, Lee being the aggressive commander here, he's going to decide to attack the Union Army again. Ewell will remain there, still cutting off the rail lines, and in the Union turn it'll be up to Sickles to drive Ewell off. But what's happening here south near Gettysburg might determine the game one way or the other. Let's see how that battle goes again. Probably be another 1-1. Actually, the battle is one gigantic 1-2, which is about right. The Confederates are attacking the Union. We'll roll the die, and what do they get? Now, the only advantage Lee has is that the Union Army is demoralized. So, here we go with a 1-2 attack. Lee rolls a 1, which I think is about the best he can get. Yep. He gets a DR, which we've already looked, just means the Union's going to lose another step, and they will have to retreat again. Well, that result certainly favors the Confederates. Meade is once again driven 2 hexes away, is still demoralized, lost a step, and Ewell is still across the railroad tracks. So, it's the Union turn, and let's see if they can drive Ewell away, at least stop those 10 points. But right now, Lee is dominating this part of Pennsylvania, because even when he attacks at 1-2, he's got a pretty good... Of course, that was a lucky die roll, too. So let's see what the Union can do. Remember, the Union Army under Meade cannot move this turn because it's got a D on it. Okay, this is the Union move. They've more or less just put their cavalry on their flanks to protect them. And Sickles does move on a division of Ewell's, which happens to be, Early's division. So we're going to have, 6 plus 4, 10 to 12. It's a massive 1-2. Sickles attacking Ewell. Let's do that battle, a corps level battle. 1-2 with a 2 means counterattack and add 1. So Ewell counterattacks 12 to 10, 1-1, but add 1. 1-1 with a 5. It's another counterattack result. So you go back to the original battle, 10 to 12, 1-2. So this goes back and forth until you get a result. That's why I don't like the table. 1-2. It's counterattack again. Back to the original table. Confederates attacking at 1-1. 1-1 with a 4. That's a counterattack. Back to 1-2 for the Union. 1-2 with a 6. It's counterattack. Confederates attack back at 1-1. You can see why I don't like this table. It just goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth between 1-2 and 1-1. Anyway, Confederates 1-1. With a 4, counterattack again, 1-2 for the Union. 2, that's counterattack but add 1. So the Confederates are counterattacking but having to add 1. They roll a 3, becomes a 4, that's a counterattack. The Union counterattacks again at 1-2. And you can see this gets rather silly. Oh, I think they finally resolved it. Yes, they got a 1, which is the DR result. So Ewell is driven away from that space and is demoralized. And you'll go back 1, 2, 3, and has a D on them. Now I'll have to check about retreating through zones of control. I think you can, but I better check. Okay, there seems to be you can retreat through zones of control. You just can't retreat onto an enemy-occupied hex, a mountain hex side, sea hex side, or hex sides. So that's bad enough for Ewell because that will prevent the Confederates from getting their 10 points this turn. Okay, we've advanced the turn record. It's June 25th now, and the Confederates get to move. And getting kind of bored with this game, actually. Lee can move. He'll probably hit the Army of the Potomac again. And Ewell has lost the battle, so we're not going to get the 10 points there. Lee could splinter off another division up there to get the 10 points. Maybe clear away a lot of these dummies with some of his cavalry. I'll weigh the options here, see what Lee will do. Okay, Lee decided to not attack the Army of the Potomac again. After all, it'll be just a 1-2, and probably all he'd get is just make the Union lose another step. Of course, it would drive them away, and but with them being sort of knocked out for a whole turn, demoralized, Lee has the opportunity to free himself, so he's scattered to the west, and he's going to go up there and beat up Sickles and get those railroad points again. So Lee is very much in control still of this game. Let's see what the Union can do. Okay, the Union Army couldn't move that turn because it was demoralized, but that comes off now. And Sickles crossed the Susquehanna and attacked that unit, which we know is a dummy. Oh, pardon me, it's not a dummy. Well, okay, we have a battle then. Sickles. It's actually a massive 1-1, I think. Although, wait, we've got zones of control. No, I'll have to check the Confederate supply situation there. Yeah, it's still a 1-1 battle, even though the Confederates are unsupplied. They're okay in defense at 1 when they're unsupplied. So it's a 1-1. 1-1 with the 2 is the good old DR result. So we drove Jones' division away. So 1, 2, 3, and he'll be D'd. That's not good for the Confederates, that is. Good for Sickles. And Sickles will occupy there. Flip over again. So they've driven the Confederates from the Susquehanna. Lee will have to rethink the whole position now. We'll advance to the June 27th turn and see what Lee will do. Okay, Lee is concentrated again. He's decided to wipe out these pesky militia that are bothering him. The Union Army is far enough away from him he can do that. So that's what he's going to do. He'll do more or less a 6-1 roll against that 1-5. Trouble is, the way this table is constructed, even at 6-1, you're always going to lose a step, which is a little wonky again. That's, 3 or 4 divisions of the Army of Northern Virginia under Robert E. Lee attacking militia, and they're going to have to lose a step. Well, anyway, that's the way the game is designed. We'll roll a die. Got a 5 on the 6-1 table, which is, yep, each lose a step. Take the losses, and the Union will do their turn. Okay, that's after the Union have moved. Meade has gone into march mode again, spreading his corps out, trying to close as fast as he can to Lee's army. So we may have another big battle, perhaps near Carlisle. Not sure if Lee will try to brush away Sickles and get those points again, or face Meade. So it will be the June 28th turn, and let's see what the Confederates can do. Okay, knowing Lee, he doesn't want to give up his campaign, so he's moving the bulk of the Army of Northern Virginia to the south side of the Susquehanna, and he's going to attack Sickles. And he'll do that so we can get a unit across the river and again cut the rail lines. So we'll have most of the army attack across the river to Sickles, and I think they have to add 1 to the dice because they're attacking across the river. Actually, no, it says the defenders double. Well, Lee's attacking anyway. Let's see what that battle goes like. Okay, that battle of the Susquehanna works out to a 3-1, even with Sickles doubled. Roll the dice, see what the Confederates get. 3-1 with a 1. That's the best they could have got. That's 2 steps for the Union and 1 step for the Confederates. So the Confederates have won a complete victory there. Take the casualties and put the units back on the board. Actually, Lee doesn't take the position. When you take casualties like that, there's no retreat. So Sickles, though he took a lot of casualties, he's now only at 2, he held Lee back. So Lee will not get the 10 points for interdicting the rail lines this turn. So it'll be the Union turn. What can Meade do? Okay, this is after the Union have moved. Meade and the boys have closed in on the Confederates now, and they could actually attack these cavalry, which would cause them to retreat. They could engage with, that D should be off by now. They could engage Ewell's division there, but they will not. But they will attack this brigade, which causes that brigade to fall back because it's cavalry. And Meade will advance with a corps. And they'll attack that cavalry, which causes this to retreat. And they will advance with a corps. So, actually, they might as well advance with the 2 corps. So, we're coming to a pretty well game decision here. Lee's going to have to fight a big battle to get himself out of this scrape. And we should see a game decision here, certainly a turning point of the campaign. We'll advance the turn record, see what the Confederates can do. And it'll be June 29th, 30th. So about the time of the real Battle of Gettysburg, things will be decided one way or the other, I think. Okay, that's after the Confederates moved. Lee is throwing his entire army against the Sedgwick column there at Carlisle. We'll see what happens there, and I may wrap the video after this. Let's see what the battle is like. Okay, Lee's got a 3-1 in that battle, but he is attacking across this creek here, so he will be adding 1 to the dice. 3-1, add 1. And a die, Lee rolls a 3, which is a good old exchange again. Sedgwick will lose 1, and the Confederates will lose 1. Okay, well, as you can see, battle is rather indecisive. I'll do the Union turn here, and what I'll do is I'll throw the whole Army of the Potomac against Lee and see what the final result is there. Okay, the big Battle of Carlisle again, except this time I've got every single factor of the Army of the Potomac except Sickles, who has been reduced to a 2, and they're hitting Lee's entire army. So let's see what the odds are, and this will be the final battle. And I'm going to wrap the video. Okay, as I suspected, the whole game comes down to 1-1 again on that table that I dread so much. So let's roll a die and see what happens. 1-1 for the Union. They roll a 5, which is the old counterattack result again, which means the whole Army of Northern Virginia picks 1 corps. They'll pick the 12th there and attack. And it will be, 12 will be a 5-1 attack, 5-1. With the 3 is defender lose 2 and the Confederates lose 1. Take the casualties. Okay, well that whole battle took place there just west of Carlisle. Meade attacked Lee and got a 1-1. And one side lost 2 steps and the other lost 1. So it's just kind of a big bloody battle and not much happened. And we're on the June 30th turn. But I'm going to wrap the video there and make a few comments on the game itself. Okay, Lee moves north. Evaluation. What can I say about it? Well, it's still not a bad game, but I'm afraid it's showing its age. I mean, I always thought that combat results table back in '73 was pretty wonky, gives some pretty silly results. And of course, it's 2018, and playing it many years later, it still gives wonky results. I've had 2 or 3 major battles, which really couldn't happen in the campaign in '63. 1 or 2 battles would decide it. In real life, of course, Gettysburg decided it, a 3-day battle. But here the battles can go over and over and over and over again. And I don't know, it just needed more decisive combat results for the armies. It's not a bad game for its era. I mean, 1973, very basic graphics, simple counters. I've always kept it because mainly for nostalgia purposes. But, you know, to tell you the truth, I don't think I'd be playing this game many more times, if at all. The Antietam campaign is even less balanced than the Gettysburg campaign. So that's it for Lee Moves North, game designed by SPI in 1973. A little bit of a long video, and if you made it through, well, thank you for watching.